Is there a problem, officer?
We need to see some proof of citizenship.
I beg your pardon?
You fit the description of illegals using fake credentials.
I'm a federal prosecutor. What are you talking about?
You're being detained until we can verify your status.
Barrett Prettyman Federal Courthouse had been Simone Crawford's workplace for 11 years. She had tried cases in its courtrooms. She had sent corrupt politicians to prison within its walls. She had secured convictions against human traffickers who had destroyed lives across 3 states. On this Monday morning, she was 26 minutes from a hearing in her biggest case yet, a trafficking network with ties to corrupt border officials. She never made it inside. ICE agent Marcus Webb intercepted her on the sidewalk, demanded proof of citizenship, and detained her for fitting the description of people using fake credentials. The description was black woman in professional attire. The credentials were her DOJ badge, her bar card, and 17 years of service to the Department of Justice. The courthouse she worked in was visible over Webb's shoulder as he handcuffed her. The judge waiting for her 9 a.m. appearance was visible through the windows. $12.8 million. And a federal prosecutor who walked back into that courthouse to do what she did best, secure convictions against those who violated civil rights. Constitution Avenue stretched between the federal buildings that defined Washington's legal landscape. The Department of Justice to the west. The federal courthouse to the east. The architecture of American law enforcement surrounding the sidewalks where bureaucrats and attorneys moved between hearings. Assistant United States Attorney Simone Crawford had parked her Lincoln sedan at 8:31 a.m. 3 minutes to gather her files. 26 minutes until her hearing began. United States versus Kowalczyk. Human trafficking. Forged documents. Victims from 4 countries. A network that had operated for 7 years, moving people across borders, exploiting them in labor operations throughout the Southeast. The case had taken 2 years to build. Today was opening arguments. 11 years with the U.S. Attorney's Office for the District of Columbia. 6 years before that with the DOJ Civil Rights Division. Harvard Law, cum laude. Editor of the Civil Rights Civil Liberties Law Review. The Attorney General's Award for Distinguished Service, presented by the AG himself in a ceremony she kept photographed on her office wall. 47 federal convictions. 3 corrupt politicians. A trafficking ring leader who would spend the rest of his life in federal prison. Her family had been in America for 6 generations. Her great-great-grandfather had served as a Buffalo Soldier, one of the black cavalrymen who helped settle the American West. Her grandfather had been one of the first black detectives in the Baltimore Police Department. Her mother had served as a federal judge for 23 years. The Crawfords knew what service looked like. They had been providing it since before most American families had arrived. This morning, she wore a tailored charcoal gray pantsuit, cream silk blouse, pearl earrings. The attire of a federal prosecutor heading to trial. Her litigation briefcase contained the files she would need, witness lists, exhibit binders, the opening statement she had rehearsed the night before. She was 50 feet from the courthouse entrance when she noticed the ICE agents. 2 men in olive tactical vests, tan cargo pants, black boots. The uniform of Immigration and Customs Enforcement. They stood near the courthouse steps, watching the morning foot traffic with the particular attention of officers looking for something. Crawford had prosecuted immigration fraud cases. She recognized the posture, the scanning, the selection process that preceded a stop. She kept walking. Agent Marcus Webb stepped into her path. "Ma'am, we need to see some identification." Crawford stopped. Her briefcase hung at her side. The courthouse entrance was visible behind him, the building where she had worked for over a decade. "Excuse me, is there a problem?" "Proof of citizenship. We need to verify your status." The words landed on the sidewalk of Constitution Avenue, in front of the federal courthouse, 24 minutes before a hearing that would determine whether human traffickers went to prison. Crawford's expression shifted from confusion to something colder. "Proof of citizenship? I beg your pardon." 2 men in olive tactical vests, tan cargo pants, black boots. The uniform of Immigration and Customs Enforcement. They stood near the courthouse steps, watching the morning foot traffic with the particular attention of officers looking for something. Crawford had prosecuted immigration fraud cases. She recognized the posture, the scanning, the selection process that preceded a stop. She kept walking. Agent Marcus Webb stepped into her path. "Ma'am, we need to see some identification." Crawford stopped. Her briefcase hung at her side. The courthouse entrance was visible behind him, the building where she had worked for over a decade. Excuse me, is there a problem? Proof of citizenship. We need to verify your status. The words landed on the sidewalk of Constitution Avenue, in front of the federal courthouse, 24 minutes before a hearing that would determine whether human traffickers went to prison. Crawford's expression shifted from confusion to something colder. Proof of citizenship? I beg your pardon. Chapter 2. The Credentials. 650 words. Webb's partner had positioned himself 3 feet to the left. His body cam was active. Axon Body 2. Timestamp 8 hours 34 minutes and 52 seconds, capturing the scene from a wider angle that showed both subjects and the courthouse looming behind them. We're conducting enforcement operations. You fit the description of individuals using fraudulent credentials to access federal buildings. What description? That's need to know. I'm a federal prosecutor. I'd say I need to know why I'm being stopped on my way to court. Webb's expression didn't change. His partner's body cam captured his posture. Aggressive, certain, the stance of someone who had already decided what he was looking at. You have identification? Crawford reached into her briefcase, slowly, deliberately. She produced her DOJ credential case, the leather holder that contained her badge and photo identification. Assistant United States Attorney Simone Crawford, District of Columbia. I've worked in that building. She gestured to the courthouse. For 11 years. Webb took the credentials. He examined them with the theatrical suspicion that had defined every unlawful stop in Crawford's prosecution experience. These could be fake. They're not fake. They're issued by the Department of Justice. We've seen sophisticated forgeries. People trying to access federal buildings with counterfeit credentials. I'm not trying to access a federal building. I work in that federal building. I have a hearing in 22 minutes. That's what they all say. Crawford looked at the partner's body cam. At the courthouse security cameras visible near the entrance. At the colleagues walking past. Attorneys she recognized, heading to their own hearings, some glancing at the scene with confusion. Agent, I'm going to give you an opportunity to verify my credentials through official channels. You can call the U.S. Attorney's Office. You can call DOJ Maine. You can walk into that courthouse and ask anyone in the building who Simone Crawford is. I'm not calling anyone. Then you're making a decision based on nothing but assumptions. I'm making a decision based on training and experience. Your training tells you that a black woman in a suit, carrying a litigation briefcase, walking toward a federal courthouse where she has worked for 11 years, is likely to be using fraudulent credentials. Webb's face flushed. The body cam captured it. The reaction of someone whose unspoken assumptions had been spoken aloud. You fit the description of illegals using fake credentials to access federal facilities. I fit the description. Crawford let the words hang. What description exactly? What specific identifying information was in this description? That's operational information. There is no description, is there? There's no report, no intelligence, no legitimate basis for this stop. You saw a black woman near a federal building and decided that required investigation. Ma'am, you're being detained until we can verify your status. My status is Assistant United States Attorney, and I have a hearing in 19 minutes that I cannot miss. That's not my problem. It's about to be. Webb reached for her arm. You're coming with us. I am not going anywhere. I've shown you valid federal credentials. I've offered verification. You have no legal basis to detain me. I have probable cause to believe you're unlawfully present. Probable cause based on what? My skin color. Webb's hand closed around her arm. People like you think you can talk your way out of anything. People like me? Crawford's voice dropped to the temperature she used during cross-examinations that destroyed witnesses. I'm a federal prosecutor. What, exactly, is people like me? Turn around. Hands behind your back. You're handcuffing a federal prosecutor on the sidewalk outside her own courthouse. I'm detaining an individual who refuses to cooperate with lawful immigration enforcement. There's nothing lawful about this. I've shown credentials. I've offered verification. You've refused both. Webb spun her toward the courthouse, the building where she had tried 47 cases, the entrance she had walked through thousands of times. Her briefcase fell to the sidewalk. Her litigation files scattered across the concrete. Hands behind your back. I am not resisting. I am complying under duress with what I believe to be an unlawful detention. I want that on record for the cameras. The handcuffs clicked around her wrists. The partner's body cam captured it all. So did the courthouse security cameras. So did the phones that had begun appearing among the pedestrians who had stopped to watch. A woman in a federal prosecutor's suit, handcuffed on the sidewalk of Constitution Avenue, the Department of Justice visible in one direction and the federal courthouse in the other. What's your badge number? Webb didn't answer. I asked for your badge number. I'm entitled to that information. You're entitled to remain silent. I'm not under arrest. I'm being detained. Those are different legal categories with different rights, and I suspect I know the law better than you do. An attorney Crawford recognized, David Chun, from the public defender's office, had stopped on the sidewalk. His phone was raised. Simone? What's happening? David, document everything. I'm being detained for walking to court. Detained for what? Apparently for fitting a description that consists entirely of being black near a federal building. Chun kept recording. Other phones joined his, a half-dozen angles capturing the scene. Webb's partner shifted uncomfortably. His bodycam showed his face turning toward Webb, uncertainty visible in his expression. Marcus, maybe we should verify. We'll verify at the field office. She says she's a prosecutor. She says a lot of things. Anyone can claim to be DOJ. Crawford looked at the partner directly. At his bodycam. What's your name? Agent Torres. Agent Torres, I want you to know that I hold you equally responsible for this unlawful detention. You have the ability to verify my credentials in under 60 seconds. Your partner is refusing to do so. Your silence makes you complicit. Torres looked at Webb, at Crawford, at the growing crowd with their phones. Marcus, we're taking her in. For what charge? Suspicion of fraudulent credentials. She showed us DOJ identification, which could be fake. She's pointing at the courthouse, saying she works there, which could be a lie. Crawford's voice cut through the exchange. At 8:37 a.m., I was handcuffed on the sidewalk outside the E. Barrett Prettyman Federal Courthouse by IC agents Webb and Torres. I had shown valid DOJ credentials. I had offered verification. Both were refused. I have a hearing at 9 a.m. in Courtroom 4 before Judge Patricia Hernandez in the matter of United States versus Kowalczyk. She looked at Chun and his phone. David, call my office. Tell them what's happening. Ask them to notify Judge Hernandez that I've been detained. By who? By agents who apparently don't recognize federal prosecutors when they handcuff them. Webb grabbed her arm. Let's go. Where? Field office. Until we sort this out. You're taking a federal prosecutor from her own courthouse to an ICE field office. Do you have any idea what happens next? I know my job. You're about to learn it much better than you wanted to. Courtroom 4 was ready for the 9 a.m. hearing. Judge Patricia Hernandez was on the bench. The defense attorneys were at their table. The court reporter was positioned. The gallery held observers from 2 civil rights organizations monitoring the trafficking prosecution. The prosecution table had one person, Assistant United States Attorney Michael Torres, Crawford's co-counsel, who had expected her to arrive 15 minutes early as she always did. At 8:47 a.m., she still wasn't there. At 8:52 a.m., Torres checked his phone. No messages. No calls. No explanation. At 8:55 a.m., he called her cell. Straight to voicemail. At 8:57 a.m., he received a text from David Chun. Simone detained outside courthouse by IC. I'm recording. She says call your office. Torres stared at the message. Then he was moving. Out of the courtroom, phone already dialing, the words forming in his head that he could barely believe he needed to say. This is AUSA Torres. I need to speak with the U.S. Attorney immediately. We have a situation. The United States Attorney for the District of Columbia was Robert Blackwell, 23 years with DOJ, appointed by the President, confirmed by the Senate. He had hired Simone Crawford. He had watched her become one of the most effective prosecutors in the office. What kind of situation? Simone Crawford has been detained by ICE on the sidewalk outside the courthouse. She has a hearing in 3 minutes. Silence. Then, detained? For what? According to the witness, they demanded proof of citizenship. She showed her credentials. They said they might be fake. They detained a federal prosecutor for walking to court? That appears to be what's happening. Blackwell was already moving. His coat was on before Torres finished the sentence. Where exactly? Constitution Avenue. Outside the main entrance. I'm on my way. Notify Judge Hernandez that we need a brief delay. Do not explain why on the record. Just say unavoidable circumstances. Yes, sir. And Torres, document every communication. This is about to become a federal incident. Blackwell was in his vehicle within 2 minutes. The drive from the U.S. Attorney's office to the courthouse took 4 minutes under normal circumstances. He made it in 3. The scene on the sidewalk was exactly as Torres had described. 2 ICE agents. A woman in a charcoal suit, a woman Blackwell had known for 11 years, standing handcuffed near a federal vehicle. A crowd of witnesses with phones. Courthouse security watching from the entrance, clearly uncertain about jurisdiction. Blackwell stepped out of his car. His credentials were already in his hand. "I'm Robert Blackwell, United States Attorney for the District of Columbia." Webb turned. His partner's body cam captured the moment, the U.S. Attorney approaching an IC detention scene. "Sir, this is an immigration matter. That woman is Assistant United States Attorney Simone Crawford. She is one of my senior prosecutors. She has worked in that building for 11 years. He pointed to the courthouse. "I appointed her to lead our most sensitive civil rights prosecutions. I have personally handed her commendations from the Attorney General. And you have her in handcuffs." Webb's face had begun the color change that accompanied catastrophic realization. "Sir," she showed credentials, "but we couldn't verify." "You couldn't verify? Did you call my office?" "We were going to." "Did you call DOJ Maine?" "We thought." "Did you walk 50 feet into that courthouse and ask anyone in the building who Simone Crawford is?" Webb had no answer. Blackwell turned to Torres, the second agent. "Uncuff her. Now." "Sir, we need to follow procedure." "Your procedure just detained a federal prosecutor on her way to prosecute a human trafficking case. A case, I should mention, that involves corrupt border officials." He paused. "Uncuff her, or I'll have federal marshals here in 3 minutes to do it for you." Torres, the partner, not the co-counsel, removed the handcuffs. His hands were shaking. The body cam captured the tremor. Crawford brought her arms forward slowly. The marks on her wrists were visible, red lines where the metal had been too tight. She rubbed them without speaking, her eyes fixed on Webb. "Simone." Blackwell's voice was controlled, but the anger beneath it was unmistakable. "Are you injured?" "No. Just detained." "I'm sorry. This should never have happened." "No, it shouldn't have." She retrieved her briefcase from the sidewalk. Her files had scattered, witness lists, exhibit binders, the opening statement she had worked on for weeks. She gathered them with the methodical precision that defined her courtroom presence. "What time is it?" 9:04. "I'm late for my hearing. Judge Hernandez has been notified. She's holding." Crawford looked at Webb one final time. Her expression carried the cold assessment of a prosecutor cataloging evidence. "Agent Webb, you just detained the attorney prosecuting corruption among border officials. On her way to that trial." Webb's face completed its transformation, from certainty to confusion to horror. "I didn't know. You didn't ask. I told you I was a federal prosecutor. I showed you my credentials. I offered verification. You refused everything and decided to handcuff me anyway." She picked up the last of her scattered files. "The case I'm prosecuting today, United States versus Kowalczyk, involves corrupt officials who facilitated human trafficking across the border. Officials who used their positions to exploit vulnerable people." She paused. "I wonder how you knew to stop me this morning. I wonder who told you what I looked like. I wonder whether this random enforcement action was as random as you want everyone to believe." Webb's face had gone gray. The body cam captured it. The moment an immigration detention became something much darker. "I don't know what you're talking about." "You will. After I'm done with my hearing, I'm going to request that the FBI investigate this stop. I'm going to have your communications subpoenaed. I'm going to find out whether you decided to detain me on your own or whether someone asked you to." She turned to Blackwell. "I need to get to court." "Go. I'll handle this. I want preservation orders on their body cam footage. Both of them. And courthouse security cameras. Done. And I want their phones. Before they have a chance to delete anything." Blackwell looked at Webb and Torres with an expression that made clear they had no choice. "Hand them over." "You can't. I'm the United States Attorney. You just detained one of my prosecutors." "I can and I am. Phones. Now." Webb's hand moved to his pocket. Torres did the same. Both phones were surrendered into Blackwell's custody. "You'll both remain here until federal marshals arrive to take your statements. Do not contact anyone. Do not discuss this with anyone. Do not attempt to leave." Crawford was already walking toward the courthouse, the building she had worked in for 11 years, the entrance she had been blocked from reaching, the courtroom where a trafficking case waited. She paused at the doors. Mr. Blackwell? Yes. I'm going to finish this hearing. Then I'm going to prosecute whoever put those agents in my path. She disappeared into the courthouse. Blackwell turned back to Webb and Torres. His expression had hardened into something that promised consequences. Gentlemen, I hope you have good attorneys. Because you're going to need them. The FBI executed preservation orders within the hour. Both bodycam recordings. Courthouse security footage. The phones surrendered by Webb and Torres. What the phones revealed turned a civil rights violation into a conspiracy case. Agent Marcus Webb had received a text message at 7:47 a.m., 47 minutes before the stop. The message came from an unregistered number, later traced to a burner phone purchased with cash in Baltimore. Black woman, gray suit, Lincoln sedan. She'll be at the courthouse by 8:30. Make sure she doesn't get inside. Webb had responded. What's the reason? Immigration check. Random enforcement. You know how to play it. What's in it for me? 20,000. Same account as before. Same account as before. The FBI's financial forensics team found 3 prior deposits in Webb's personal account, each one corresponding to an enforcement action that had resulted in detained individuals missing court appearances, job interviews, or meetings that someone wanted disrupted. Webb wasn't conducting immigration enforcement. He was running interference for hire. The burner phone was traced through cell tower data to the vicinity of the Metropolitan Correctional Facility, where Victor Kowalczyk, the defendant in Crawford's trafficking case, was awaiting trial. Kowalczyk's attorney had visited him at 6:30 a.m. that morning. The attorney had left at 7:15 a.m. The text to Webb was sent at 7:47 a.m. The connection was circumstantial but compelling. Someone associated with Kowalczyk had known Crawford's description, her vehicle, her schedule. Someone had arranged for ICE agents to intercept her before she could reach the courtroom. Someone had tried to obstruct a federal prosecution. The investigation expanded within days. FBI counterintelligence, because corrupt federal agents represented a national security concern. DOJ Office of Professional Responsibility, because a federal prosecutor had been targeted. ICE Internal Affairs, because their agents had been weaponized against the justice system. Webb's personnel file revealed a pattern invisible in isolation but damning in aggregate. 17 random enforcement actions over 2 years. 14 had resulted in individuals missing scheduled appointments, court hearings, depositions, job interviews. Each one had a financial trail leading back to Webb's accounts. His partner, Torres, had participated in 3 of those actions. Whether he knew the full scope of Webb's corruption remained under investigation, but his failure to intervene, his silence when Crawford identified herself as a prosecutor, made him complicit regardless. The text messages on Webb's phone painted a complete picture. Conversations with unnamed contacts arranging checks on specific individuals. Discussions of payment amounts. Jokes about diversity targets who made it easy to justify stops. One exchange, 3 months before the Crawford incident, stood out. Got another government worker today? Fancy suit. Thought she was untouchable. What happened? Made her late for a deposition. Lawyer on the other side paid well. Nice work. Crawford wasn't Webb's first victim. She was his 47th. The first who had the power to fight back. Kowalczyk's attorney was arrested 2 weeks after the incident. The charges: conspiracy to obstruct justice, conspiracy to deprive civil rights, wire fraud. He had been the intermediary between Kowalczyk and Webb, arranging the stop, paying the fee, trying to derail the prosecution that threatened to put his client away for life. The trafficking case proceeded anyway. Crawford delivered her opening statement the same day she was detained, 47 minutes late, wrists still marked from the handcuffs, fury channeled into the precision that defined her courtroom presence. The jury didn't know about the morning's events. They didn't need to. The evidence spoke for itself. Kowalczyk was convicted on all counts. Life in federal prison for the trafficking ringleader. And now Webb would face charges of his own. The full scope of Webb's corruption emerged through digital forensics that left nothing hidden. 17 arranged detentions over 2 years. 14 individuals made late for court proceedings, depositions, or meetings. 3 deportation cases initiated against legal residents whose immigration status was weaponized by adversaries in civil disputes. His stop records showed the targeting strategy. 63% of his random enforcement actions involved Black or Hispanic professionals, attorneys, doctors, business owners. People whose schedules could be disrupted with maximum impact. People who fit descriptions that existed only in Webb's financial interests. His social media accounts, secured before he could delete them, revealed the ideology beneath the corruption. Posts shared from anti-immigration accounts. Comments about illegals pretending to be Americans. Membership in online groups where officers traded strategies for quality enforcement. The sanitized language for targeting minorities. Text messages to fellow agents showed the casual racism that had made Crawford an easy target. Another diversity hire in a government job. Probably got there through quotas. They're everywhere now. Someone has to remind them they don't belong. Easy money. They always fit a description. The internal investigation at ICE revealed that Webb had never conducted a single enforcement action against a white professional. Not one. Every random check had targeted a person of color. Agent Torres, the partner whose Bodycam had captured everything, was interviewed separately. His cooperation determined whether he would face charges or merely termination. Did you know Webb was being paid to conduct these stops? No. I followed his lead. Did you question why he always targeted specific individuals? He said they fit descriptions. Did you ever see these descriptions? In writing? From any official source? Silence. Did you ask for verification when Ms. Crawford showed her credentials? I suggested it. He said no. And you accepted that? He was the senior agent. Ms. Crawford identified herself as a federal prosecutor. She pointed at the courthouse and said she worked there. She offered to have her credentials verified. And you handcuffed her anyway. Webb said. Webb is facing decades in federal prison for conspiracy and civil rights violations. What he said doesn't help your case. Torres provided full cooperation. His testimony would be essential for the prosecution of Webb and the attorney who had arranged the stop. Crawford herself reviewed the investigation's findings. The messages, the financial records, the pattern that had targeted dozens of professionals before it targeted her. 47 people, she said to the FBI agents who briefed her. 47 people whose lives were disrupted because someone paid an agent to stop them. You were the first one with the power to expose it. I was the first one he was stupid enough to stop on the sidewalk outside a federal courthouse, in front of cameras, while my boss was 2 blocks away. She looked at the evidence spread across the conference table. How many of the others have you contacted? We're in the process. They're all potential plaintiffs in a civil case. They're all witnesses to his pattern. Every one of them deserves to know that what happened to them wasn't random. It was purchased. The federal grand jury convened 6 weeks after the incident. The charges: conspiracy to obstruct justice, civil rights violations, bribery, wire fraud. Webb was indicted on all counts. So was Kowalczyk's attorney. So was a paralegal in the attorney's office who had helped arrange payments. The trafficking case Crawford had prosecuted was complete. Kowalczyk convicted. His network dismantled. Now she would prosecute the men who had tried to stop her from winning it. The federal courtroom in Washington drew national attention. The case had become a symbol. A federal prosecutor detained on the sidewalk outside her own courthouse by an agent who had been paid to stop her. Crawford testified in the morning. She wore the same charcoal suit she had worn the day of the incident. A deliberate choice, a visual reminder. On October 28th, I was walking to the E. Barrett Prettyman Federal Courthouse for a 9 a.m. hearing. I had parked my car. I was carrying my briefcase. I was 26 minutes early. What happened next? Agent Webb stepped into my path and demanded proof of citizenship. Did you provide identification? I showed him my DOJ credentials. Badge, photo ID, the credential case issued by the Department of Justice. The federal courtroom in Washington drew national attention. The case had become a symbol. A federal prosecutor detained on the sidewalk outside her own courthouse by an agent who had been paid to stop her. Crawford testified in the morning. She wore the same charcoal suit she had worn the day of the incident. A deliberate choice, a visual reminder. On October 28th, I was walking to the E. Barrett Prettyman Federal Courthouse for a 9 a.m. hearing. I had parked my car. I was carrying my briefcase. I was 26 minutes early. What happened next? Agent Webb stepped into my path and demanded proof of citizenship. Did you provide identification? I showed him my DOJ credentials. Badge, photo ID, the credential case issued by the Department of Justice. What was his response? He said they could be fake. He said anyone could obtain fraudulent credentials. He refused to verify through any official channel. Did you explain your position? I told him I was a federal prosecutor. I pointed to the courthouse, the building where I had worked for 11 years. I offered to have anyone in the building confirm my identity. And he handcuffed me. He said I fit the description of illegals using fake credentials. The description, as I understood it, was black woman in professional attire. The bodycam footage was played for the jury. They watched Webb approach. They watched the demand for proof of citizenship. They watched Crawford's credentials dismissed. They watched the handcuffs applied while the courthouse loomed in the background. Miss Crawford, what was going through your mind? I was thinking about my case, about the victims who had been trafficked, about the hearing I was about to miss, and I was thinking about my family. She paused. My great-great-grandfather was a Buffalo soldier. My grandfather was one of the first black detectives in Baltimore. My mother was a federal judge. 6 generations of service to this country. And I was standing on a sidewalk in handcuffs, being asked to prove I belonged here. The financial evidence was presented next. The payments. The text messages. The coordination between Webb and Kowalczyk's attorney. Make sure she doesn't get inside. The jury heard those words 3 times during the trial. Webb's defense argued that he had no way of knowing Crawford was legitimately DOJ, that anyone could claim federal credentials. The prosecutor's rebuttal was surgical. No way of knowing? She showed him her DOJ badge. She pointed at the courthouse where she works. She offered verification through any channel he chose. Agent Webb didn't want to know. He had been paid not to know. She displayed the financial records. $20,000. That's what it cost to detain a federal prosecutor on her way to court. $20,000 to obstruct a trafficking prosecution. $20,000 to handcuff a woman whose family has served this country for 6 generations. The jury deliberated for 5 hours. Guilty on all counts. Webb, the attorney, the paralegal. Webb sat motionless as the verdicts were read. His career, 14 years with ICE, had ended in a conspiracy to obstruct justice. His freedom, potentially decades, would end in federal prison. Crawford watched from the gallery. The same composed expression she had maintained throughout the encounter. The same steel that had carried her through 47 convictions. Now 49. The sentencing hearing drew the same attention as the trial. The case had become a symbol, a warning about what happened when federal authority was corrupted for private gain. Agent Webb, you were entrusted with the power to enforce immigration law. You used that power to harass, detain, and obstruct for money. You targeted 47 individuals over 2 years, disrupting their lives, damaging their careers, violating their constitutional rights. The judge paused. When you detained Assistant United States Attorney Crawford, you weren't just obstructing a federal prosecution. You were attacking the justice system itself. You were taking money from a human trafficker to prevent his conviction. You were using your badge to protect the guilty and punish the innocent. Webb's sentence, 18 years federal prison. Conspiracy to obstruct justice. Civil rights violations. Bribery. Wire fraud. Kowalczyk's attorney received 12 years. The paralegal received 5. Agent Torres, who had cooperated fully, testified against Webb and expressed genuine remorse, was terminated from ICE but faced no criminal charges. His failure had been passive. His punishment was professional. The civil settlement followed within 4 months. The Department of Homeland Security agreed to pay $12.8 million rather than face a trial that would expose even more systemic failures. Crawford distributed the money with purpose. For $1 million to establish a legal defense fund for professionals targeted by pretextual enforcement stops, ensuring that the 46 other victims of Webb's scheme would have resources to pursue their own cases. $3 million to civil rights organizations focused on immigration enforcement accountability, funding the oversight that should have caught Webb years earlier. $2 million to Howard University Law School, her mother's alma mater, endowing scholarships for students pursuing civil rights careers. The remaining funds secured her family's future. College for her twin sons. Retirement security. The stability that service should have guaranteed. ICE entered a DOJ consent decree requiring enhanced oversight of enforcement actions, mandatory verification protocols, and civilian review of targeting decisions. The systems that had allowed Webb to operate for 2 years would finally be dismantled. Crawford returned to her position at the U.S. Attorney's Office. The trafficking case had been her 47th conviction. Webb's prosecution had been her 48th and 49th. She continued her work. Civil rights, public corruption, human trafficking, the cases that required prosecutors willing to confront power. Her mother called her the night after Webb's sentencing. Judge Eleanor Crawford, retired, 81 years old, still sharp as the day she had taken the bench. I watched the news. I figured you would. 6 generations, Simone. 6 generations of service, and they still demand our papers. I know, Mom. Your great-great-grandfather would be proud. He fought for a country that didn't recognize his freedom. You're still fighting the same fight. It's the only fight that matters. She still walks to the courthouse the same way. Constitution Avenue, past the spot where Webb stopped her. Through the entrance, she was blocked from reaching. The sidewalk looks the same. The courthouse looks the same. The morning foot traffic, attorneys and bureaucrats and officials, looks the same. But something has changed. The agents who patrol the area know her face now. They nod when she passes. They don't ask for her papers. She earned that recognition the hard way. By being detained. By being handcuffed. By being doubted despite every credential, every accomplishment, every generation of service. Then by prosecuting the men who did it to her. $12.8 million. 18 years federal prison. 49 convictions on her record. The courthouse behind her. The Constitution Avenue sidewalk beneath her feet. The work continuing, case by case, conviction by conviction. 6 generations of Crawfords have served this country.
Can I help you with something? What are you doing here, sir? I need to see some ID. So when does reading a book require ID? You fit the description. We need papers or proof you belong here. Proof I belong here? In a public park? I'm not going to ask again. ID or you're being detained.
1 hour. That's how long Special Agent Terrence Brooks had to wait before picking up his daughters from dance class. 1 hour of quiet on a park bench near the lake in Piedmont Park. 1 hour with a paperback novel and the September sunshine filtering through the trees. It was a ritual he had maintained for 3 years. The same bench, the same book, the same peaceful interlude in a life dedicated to counter-terrorism investigations and protecting people from threats they would never see coming. Officer Kyle Pemberton interrupted that hour at 12:17 p.m. I need to see some ID. Since when does reading a book require ID? You fit the description. Papers or proof you belong here. Proof he belonged. In a public park. On a Saturday afternoon. While his daughters learned ballet 2 blocks away. The Bodycam captured everything. The FBI captured the footage within hours. $6.2 million captured the cost of assuming a black man with a book didn't belong in a space that belonged to everyone. Piedmont Park stretched across 185 acres in the heart of Atlanta. Green space surrounded by the city skyline, trails winding past lakes and meadows, families and joggers and couples sharing the Saturday afternoon. The bench near the lake had become Terrence Brooks' sanctuary. 12 years with the Federal Bureau of Investigation. Atlanta Field Office, Counterterrorism Division. Led investigator on domestic terrorism cases across the Southeast. 2 planned attacks on federal buildings prevented. Plots that never made the news because his work had stopped them before they could unfold. The shield of bravery hung in his home office. He had earned it during a raid on a militia compound in rural Georgia. The bullet had entered his left shoulder, shattered his clavicle, and missed his heart by 3 inches. He had continued directing his team while bleeding on the compound floor. Before the FBI, 5 years as a Georgia state trooper. Before that, Morehouse College, criminal justice degree, the first in his family to graduate from a 4-year university. His mother still had the photograph on her mantle, her son in cap and gown, the future stretching ahead of him. Now he spent Saturdays reading on a park bench while Maya and Sophia learned pirouettes 2 blocks away. 9 and 6 years old. His wife, Denise, was at a principal's conference in Savannah. The girls had dance class. The park had a bench with his name on it. The paperback was a thriller, ironic, given his profession. He read for escape, not realism. The fictional FBI agents in these novels bore little resemblance to the actual work of counterterrorism investigation. He was 40 pages in when the jogger passed. Melissa Hayward, 43, was a regular at the park. She jogged the lake loop 3 times every Saturday morning, earbuds in, pace steady. She noticed the black man on the bench as she passed, noticed him the way some people noticed any black man in a space they considered theirs. She found Officer Kyle Pemberton near the boathouse. He was on foot patrol, part of Atlanta PD's increased park presence during weekend hours. Officer, there's a man sitting alone by the lake. He's been there for a while. Just sitting, on a bench, by himself. He looks suspicious. Suspicious how? I don't know. He just doesn't look like he belongs here. Pemberton didn't ask what belonging looked like. He didn't point out that sitting on a bench in a public park wasn't a crime. He didn't suggest that perhaps the man was simply enjoying a Saturday afternoon. He walked toward the lake. Brooks was still reading when he noticed the officer approaching. Light blue patrol uniform, notepad in hand. The particular posture of someone who had already decided what they were looking at. He set his bookmark and looked up. Can I help you with something? Pemberton stopped 3 feet from the bench. His partner, Officer Denise Washington, arrived 30 seconds later, her body cam already active, capturing the scene from a wider angle. What are you doing here, sir? I need to see some ID. Brooks closed his book. His expression carried the calm that 12 years of high-stakes investigations had made instinctive. Since when does reading a book require ID? We received a report about a suspicious individual. You fit the description. What description? Black male, sitting alone near the lake. That's not a description. That's an activity. I'm going to need to see some identification. On what legal basis? We're investigating a report. A report of what crime? Pemberton's jaw tightened. Washington's body cam captured the reaction, the first sign that this encounter wasn't following the script he had expected. Sir, I'm conducting a welfare check. A welfare check on a man reading a book in a public park? My welfare is fine. I'm waiting to pick up my daughters from dance class. Dance class. 2 blocks from here. Atlanta Dance Academy. Class ends at 1:15. He checked his watch, 52 minutes. And you're just sitting here? Yes, sitting. In a public park. On a Saturday afternoon. The way hundreds of other people are sitting in this park right now. He gestured toward the surrounding area. Families on blankets. Couples on benches. Joggers resting near the water. Dozens of people engaged in the same activity he was being questioned about. All of them white. None of them approached by officers. Sir, I need to see your ID. You haven't articulated a crime. You haven't explained why I'm being singled out. You've told me I fit the description of a black man sitting alone, which describes roughly half the black men in Atlanta on any given Saturday. Are you going to cooperate or not? I'm going to exercise my constitutional rights. I'm sitting in a public space. I'm not engaged in any illegal activity. You have no reasonable suspicion of any crime. Pemberton stepped closer. His hand moved to his belt, not to his weapon, but to the notepad he carried. You fit the description. We need papers or proof you belong here. Papers. Brooks repeated the word with deliberate weight. Proof I belong here? In a public park? That's what I said. Officer, I was born in Macon, Georgia. I've lived in Atlanta for 15 years. I pay taxes that fund this park. I vote for the officials who manage this city. I've spent my career protecting people who live here from threats they'll never know about. I don't care about your career. You should, because my career involves investigating civil rights violations exactly like this one. Pemberton's face flushed. Washington's camera caught it, the color rising, the realization that this man wasn't the easy encounter he had anticipated. I'm not going to ask again. ID or you're being detained. Brooks looked at Washington, at her body cam, at the park security camera mounted on a pole 30 feet away, at the family on a nearby blanket, the father now holding up his phone. For the record, I am being asked to produce identification for the act of sitting on a park bench. I have committed no crime. I have articulated no threat. The officer's stated basis for this stop is that I fit the description of a black male sitting alone. He reached slowly toward his pocket. I'm going to show you something that should end this conversation. Brooks produced a leather credential case with the deliberate movements of someone who understood how officers could interpret sudden gestures. He opened it slowly, displaying the contents clearly for both body cams. The badge gleamed in the September sunlight. Gold shield, eagle atop, the letters that identified one of the most powerful law enforcement agencies in the world. Federal Bureau of Investigation. I'm Special Agent Terrence Brooks. FBI Atlanta Field Office. Counterterrorism Division. 12 years of service. He held the credentials steady. Pemberton's body cam captured them clearly. So did Washington's. So did the park cameras and the phones now appearing throughout the surrounding area. You can verify my identity by calling the Atlanta field office. The number is on the credential case. Ask for the duty agent. They'll confirm my status. Pemberton took the credentials. He examined them with the same theatrical suspicion that had defined the encounter from the start. These could be fake. They're not fake. They're issued by the Department of Justice. Anyone can buy one of these online. Anyone can buy a replica. No one can buy working FBI credentials with a badge number that verifies through the Bureau's system. How do I know that? Call the number. It's right there. The Atlanta field office will confirm my identity, my badge number, my assignment. It takes 30 seconds. Pemberton turned the credential case over. He held it up to the light, as if examining currency for counterfeiting. This doesn't look right. It looks exactly right. I've carried those credentials for 12 years. The seal looks off. The seal is identical to every FBI credential issued since 1935. If you've seen enough to recognize an authentic one, you should recognize that one. Washington spoke for the first time, quietly, directed at her partner. Kyle, maybe we should call it in. Verify through dispatch. I don't need dispatch. I can tell when something's fake. You can tell. Brooks' voice remained level, but the temperature dropped. You have forensic training in document authentication? You've examined enough FBI credentials to identify counterfeits. I know what I'm looking at. You're looking at a federal law enforcement officer showing you valid credentials and offering immediate verification. You're choosing to reject both. Pemberton handed the credential case back. Not to return it, to hold it as evidence. I'm keeping these until we sort this out. You're confiscating FBI credentials? I'm securing potential evidence of impersonation. Impersonation. Brooks looked at Washington, at her body cam, at the cameras surrounding them. Officer Washington, I want it on record that your partner is confiscating credentials that belong to the Federal Bureau of Investigation. Credentials I have offered to verify through official channels. Credentials he has refused to authenticate. Washington's expression carried something Pemberton's didn't: doubt. The recognition that something was going wrong. Kyle, just call it in. Takes 2 minutes. And let him run while we're waiting? No. Run where? I told you, my daughters are in dance class. I'm picking them up in 48 minutes. I have nowhere to go and no reason to flee. Pemberton reached for his radio, but not to verify credentials. Dispatch, this is Unit 47. I need backup at Piedmont Park, near the lake. Possible federal impersonation. Suspect is refusing to cooperate. Brooks heard every word. So did the cameras. So did the witnesses who had gathered at a distance, phones raised, documenting what would become one of the most watched police encounter videos of the year. You just call me a suspect. I've committed no crime. Impersonating a federal officer is a crime. I'm not impersonating. I am the federal officer. We'll see about that. The backup arrived in 4 minutes. 2 additional officers, Michaels and Turner, approaching from the boathouse area. Their body cams activated as they reached the scene, adding 2 more angles to the documentation. What do we have? Possible federal impersonator. Claims to be FBI. Credentials look fake. Did you verify through dispatch? He could have accomplices on the other end. I'm not falling for that. Brooks remained seated on the bench, the position he had maintained since the encounter began. His hands rested on his knees, visible, unthreatening. The posture of someone who understood that composure was the only weapon available. Officers, I am Special Agent Terrence Brooks, FBI Atlanta Field Office. My credentials are authentic. They can be verified through the Bureau's 24-hour duty line. I am not resisting. I am not fleeing. I am sitting on a park bench waiting for my daughters. Michaels looked at the credential case in Pemberton's hand. At Brooks. At the growing crowd of witnesses. Kyle, did you try to verify? I told you. Did you call the FBI field office? The number could be fake. It's on the credential case. It's the same number we use for federal coordination on joint operations. I'm not taking that chance. Michaels exchanged a glance with Turner. Something passed between them. The recognition of a colleague who had gone too far down a path that couldn't end well. Sir, Michaels addressed Brooks directly. We're going to verify your credentials. Can you provide any additional identification? My driver's license is in my wallet. My Georgia concealed carry permit is in my wallet. Both issued in my name, matching the name on my FBI credentials. May I see them? Yes. Brooks reached slowly for his back pocket. He produced his wallet, opened it, displayed the license and permit. Terrence Bernard Brooks. Same name. Same photograph. Michaels examined the documents. He pulled out his phone, began dialing a number. I'm calling the FBI field office. Good. Ask for the duty agent. Reference badge number 4847. Pemberton stepped forward. We're not waiting for that. He needs to be secured. Secured for what? Sitting on a bench. For impersonating a federal officer. You don't know that yet. That's why we're verifying. I know what I saw. You saw a man with credentials offering verification. That's not impersonation. That's cooperation. Pemberton's hand moved to his cuffs. He's being detained until we sort this out. Kyle. But Pemberton had already moved. He grabbed Brooks' arm and pulled him from the bench. Stand up. Hands behind your back. I am not resisting. I am complying under duress with what I believe to be an unlawful detention. Hands behind your back. Brooks complied. His hands moved behind him, slowly, visibly, documented by every camera present. The handcuffs clicked around his wrists. An FBI agent, handcuffed on a park bench in Piedmont Park, surrounded by Saturday afternoon families and joggers, and the phones that recorded everything. You're making a mistake. We'll see. My partner is expecting me for lunch in 30 minutes. When I don't show up, he's going to check my location. When he sees I'm here, he's going to call the field office. When the field office can't reach me, they're going to make calls that you cannot imagine. Is that a threat? It's a prediction. I've worked with the Bureau for 12 years. I know exactly what happens when an agent goes dark in an unexpected location. Pemberton said nothing. Michaels had stepped away, phone to his ear. Yes, I'm trying to verify credentials for someone claiming to be Special Agent Terrence Brooks. Badge number 4847. The response on the other end changed his expression entirely. Special Agent Derek Coleman had been Brooks' partner for 7 years. They had worked counterterrorism cases together, shared surveillance duties, built the kind of trust that came from facing danger as a team. They also had a standing Saturday lunch date. 1 p.m., a barbecue place in Midtown that did brisket worth driving across the city for. At 12:45, Coleman was waiting at the restaurant when his phone buzzed. A location alert. He had set it up years ago, standard protocol for partners who worked the cases they worked. If either of them stayed stationary in an unexpected location for more than 20 minutes, the other got notified. Brooks' phone was pinging from Piedmont Park. That wasn't unusual. Coleman knew about the Saturday ritual, the bench, the daughters in dance class. But Brooks wasn't moving, and he wasn't answering texts. Coleman tried calling. Straight to voicemail. He tried again. Same result. The protocol was clear. When an agent with their clearance level went unreachable, you didn't wait. You escalated. He dialed the Atlanta field office. This is Special Agent Coleman. I need to confirm the location and status of Special Agent Brooks. He's showing stationary at Piedmont Park and not responding to communication. The duty agent pulled up the tracking system, standard for counterterrorism personnel. We show him at the same location. No movement for 37 minutes. That's too long. He should have moved by now. His daughter's class ends at 1:15. Want us to ping his phone? Yes. And get me a visual if you can. Park cameras, anything in the area. It took 4 minutes to access the Piedmont Park security system. The duty agent found the camera angle covering the lake area. I have him. He's on a bench near the lake. There are officers with him. Officers. Atlanta PD. 4 of them. And a pause. He's in handcuffs. Coleman was already moving toward his car. What? He's handcuffed on the bench. There's a crowd gathering. Phones are out. Give me the field office supervisor. Now. The call went up the chain with the speed that only federal agencies could achieve. Within 3 minutes, the supervisory special agent for the Atlanta field office was on the line. Coleman, what do we have? Brooks is in custody at Piedmont Park. Atlanta PD has him in cuffs. No idea why. In custody for what? Unknown. He's not answering his phone. Get down there. I'm calling Atlanta PD command. The call that went to the Atlanta Police Department came from the FBI's Atlanta field office, routed through official channels, carrying the weight of federal authority. This is Supervisory Special Agent Patricia Reeves, FBI Atlanta field office. We have confirmed that one of our agents is currently in custody of your officers at Piedmont Park. I need to speak with whoever is in charge of that scene immediately. Ma'am, I'll need to verify. Badge number 4847. Special Agent Terrence Brooks. 12 years of service. Counterterrorism Division. He's in handcuffs in a public park, and I need to know why right now. The dispatcher scrambled to connect to the officers at the scene. At Piedmont Park, Officer Michaels had just finished his call to the FBI duty line. His face had gone pale. "Kyle." His voice was barely controlled. "Uncuff him." "What?" "Uncuff him now. The FBI just confirmed. He's one of their agents. Counterterrorism. 12 years. Pemberton stared at the handcuffed man on the bench. "That's not possible." "It's confirmed. Badge number verified. Service record verified. He's exactly who he said he was." The radio on Michael's belt crackled with an incoming transmission. "All units at Piedmont Park, be advised. FBI command has contacted headquarters. The individual in custody is confirmed federal agent. Release immediately." Sergeant William Patterson arrived at 12:58 p.m. 15 years on the force. The kind of supervisor who had seen officers make mistakes before, but nothing quite like this. He found a scene that would define his department's next 2 years. A black man in handcuffs on a park bench. For officers surrounding him, a crowd of witnesses with phones raised, and a radio channel exploding with communications from headquarters about FBI contact and federal jurisdiction. What the hell happened here? Pemberton started to explain. "Sarge, we received a report about a suspicious. Why is this man in handcuffs? He was claiming to be FBI. The credentials looked fake. Did you verify them?" "I was going to." "Did you call the field office?" Silence. "Did you run his badge number through any database?" More silence. Patterson turned to Brooks, still handcuffed, still composed, still sitting on the bench where this had begun. "Sir, I'm Sergeant Patterson. Can you tell me what happened?" "I was reading a book on this bench, waiting to pick up my daughters from dance class. Officer Pemberton approached me, demanded identification, and when I showed him my FBI credentials, he called them fake and handcuffed me." "Did you offer verification?" "Multiple times. He refused to call the field office. He refused to run my badge number. He confiscated my credentials and called for backup." Patterson looked at the credential case in Pemberton's hand. "Give me those." He examined the credentials, the badge, the photo ID, the distinctive seal that every Atlanta cop should recognize from federal coordination operations. "These look authentic to me." "Sarge, anyone can buy. These look exactly like the credentials I've seen on every FBI agent I've ever worked with, which is more than you've apparently encountered." His radio crackled again. "Sergeant Patterson, be advised. FBI Supervisory Special Agent is requesting direct communication with scene commander. They're sending agents to your location." Patterson closed his eyes briefly. "Uncuff this man. Now." Pemberton hesitated. "I said now." Washington moved first. She had the key out before Pemberton could object. The handcuffs came off with a click that seemed louder than it should have been. Brooks rubbed his wrists. The marks were visible, red lines where the metal had been too tight. "Sergeant, I told your officer exactly what would happen if he detained me. The FBI has protocols for when agents go unreachable. People were going to start looking for me. People were going to start making calls. Those calls were going to reach your department." "I understand." 45 minutes. That's how long this encounter lasted. 45 minutes of being accused of impersonation, being told I don't belong in a public park, being handcuffed on a bench where I've sat every Saturday for 3 years. "Sir, I apologize." "I don't want your apology. I want to know why your officer thought a black man reading a book required investigation. I want to know what description I supposedly fit. I want to know why papers were demanded from an American citizen in a public space." Patterson had no answers. "Not good ones. My daughters are going to be waiting for me in 15 minutes. I need to pick them up. I'm going to be late because your officer couldn't imagine that a black man sitting on a bench might actually belong there." He stood. He gathered his book, the paperback that had fallen to the ground during the handcuffing. He retrieved his credentials from Patterson's hand. "The FBI will be in contact. So will my attorney." A black SUV pulled into the park's nearest lot. 2 men in suits emerged, Coleman and another agent from the field office. "And Sergeant, that's them now." The investigation moved with the urgency of a case involving a federal agent. FBI Internal Affairs, DOJ Civil Rights Division, Atlanta PD Professional Standards. 3 parallel inquiries examining the same encounter from different angles. The Bodycam footage was the foundation. For angles, every moment documented. But the investigation would reveal the architecture beneath it. Officer Kyle Pemberton had accumulated 11 complaints in 6 years. Discriminatory conduct, failure to follow procedure, harassment, 7 had been dismissed through departmental review. 4 had resulted in written reprimands, paper that went into his file and changed nothing about his behavior. The pattern was visible in the data. His stop records showed consistent targeting of black individuals in parks and public spaces. Piedmont Park, Grant Park, Centennial Olympic Park. Anywhere that a black person relaxing might attract the kind of attention Pemberton was eager to provide. 9 prior suspicious person detentions. All black men. All engaged in legal activities. Sitting, walking, reading, eating lunch. The crimes of existing in public while black. His social media accounts filled in the picture. Posts shared from accounts that trafficked in racial grievance. Comments about certain people taking over our parks. Membership in online groups where officers shared stories about quality of life, enforcement, the sanitized language for targeting minorities in spaces they were perceived not to belong. Text messages to fellow officers revealed more. Jokes about bench patrol. Comments about keeping parks family-friendly. A message sent 2 weeks before the Brooks incident. Got another suspicious one at Piedmont today. These people think they can just sit anywhere. The jogger who had made the initial complaint was interviewed separately. Why did you report Mr. Brooks? He was sitting alone. For a long time. Did you see him do anything illegal? No. Did he threaten anyone? Approach anyone? Act erratically? No. He was just sitting. What made that suspicious? He didn't look like he belonged there. What does someone who belongs at Piedmont Park look like? She had no answer that wouldn't confirm what the investigation already knew. The FBI's internal review added another dimension. Brooks' service record was exemplary. 12 years without a single disciplinary issue. 2 terrorist plots prevented. A bullet wound earned protecting the country. The Shield of Bravery, the Bureau's second highest honor for heroism. Agent Brooks has dedicated his career to protecting Americans from threats they'll never know about, Supervisory Special Agent Reeves stated in her summary. He was detained for reading a book in a public park by an officer who couldn't imagine he belonged there. The federal grand jury convened 8 weeks after the incident. The charges presented: deprivation of rights under color of law, false imprisonment, civil rights violations. The evidence was comprehensive. The body cams, the park cameras, the phone recordings, the dispatch records showing no actual crime reported, just suspicious person. Brooks testified about the encounter, about the demand for papers, about the accusation that his credentials were fake, about being handcuffed on a bench where he had sat peacefully for 3 years. I've spent my career investigating threats to this country. I've taken a bullet in service of that mission, and I was treated like a criminal for waiting to pick up my daughters from dance class. The grand jury returned indictments within hours. The federal courtroom in Atlanta drew national attention. The case had become a symbol: an FBI agent with a shield of bravery, handcuffed in a public park for the crime of reading while black. Brooks testified in his bureau dress attire. 12 years of service represented in his bearing, his composure, his precise recounting of facts. On September 14th, I was seated on a bench in Piedmont Park. I had a book. I was waiting for my daughters to finish dance class. Officer Pemberton approached me and demanded identification. Did he explain why? He said I fit the description of a suspicious person. When I asked what description, he said, black male, sitting alone. Did you provide identification? I showed him my FBI credentials. Badge, photo ID, the credential case issued by the Department of Justice. What was his response? He said they looked fake. He said anyone could buy them online. He refused to verify them through official channels. The bodycam footage was played for the jury. They watched Pemberton approach. They watched the demand for papers. They watched the credentials dismissed. They watched the handcuffs applied to a man who had offered every form of verification available. Agent Brooks, what was going through your mind when you were handcuffed? I was thinking about my daughters. They were going to be waiting for me outside their dance class, and I wasn't going to be there. I was thinking about my career, 12 years of service, and this is how I'm treated by a fellow law enforcement officer. I was thinking about my father, who was a postal worker for 35 years, and my mother, who taught 3rd grade for 40 years, and how they raised me to believe that working hard and following the rules would be enough. He paused. It wasn't enough. Not for Officer Pemberton. For him, the only thing that mattered was the color of my skin. The agents who had responded to the scene testified about the federal protocols, about the tracking system, about the calls that had gone up the chain when Brooks went unreachable. When an agent with Agent Brooks' clearance level goes dark, we treat it as a potential crisis, Agent Coleman explained. We had people heading to that park within minutes of confirming his location. The jogger who had made the original complaint was called as a witness. Under oath, her testimony collapsed into the same empty phrases she had given investigators. He didn't look like he belonged. What does belonging look like, Ms. Hayward? She had no answer. Pemberton's attorney attempted the standard defense. Good faith. Responding to a report. No way to know. The prosecutor's rebuttal was surgical. No way to know. Agent Brooks showed him FBI credentials. He offered verification through the field office. He provided his badge number. Officer Pemberton refused every avenue of confirmation because he had already decided what he was looking at. A black man who couldn't possibly be who he claimed to be. The jury deliberated for 4 hours. Guilty on all counts. Pemberton sat motionless as the verdicts were read. His family in the gallery remained silent. His attorney placed a hand on his shoulder. The defendant detained a federal agent for reading in a public park. He demanded papers from an American citizen. He handcuffed a man who had dedicated his life to protecting this country. The evidence leaves no room for doubt. The courtroom was silent as the judge reviewed the pre-sentencing materials. 6 years of complaints. 11 documented incidents. A pattern visible to anyone who looked. Officer Pemberton, you were entrusted with a badge to protect all citizens equally. Instead, you used that badge to target individuals based on race. You demanded papers from a man whose only crime was reading a book in a public park. You dismissed valid FBI credentials because you couldn't imagine a black man actually being who he claimed to be. She paused. You didn't just violate Special Agent Brooks' civil rights. You violated the trust that every citizen places in law enforcement. You reinforced every fear that black Americans carry when they encounter police. You proved that even the highest credentials, the most exemplary service, the most obvious innocence, none of it matters to an officer who sees race before anything else. The sentence, 5 years federal prison. Enhanced for targeting under color of law. Enhanced for the documented pattern of civil rights violations. Pemberton was led from the courtroom in handcuffs, the same restraints he had applied to Brooks in a park on a Saturday afternoon. The civil settlement followed within 3 months. Atlanta agreed to pay $6.2 million rather than face a trial the city knew it would lose. Brooks distributed the money with purpose. $2 million to establish scholarships for minority students pursuing careers in federal law enforcement, ensuring that the next generation of agents would look like the communities they served. $1 million to civil rights organizations focused on public accommodation, funding the systemic change that individual cases couldn't achieve. The remaining funds secured his family's future. College for Maya and Sophia. Retirement for his parents. The stability that service should have always guaranteed. The Atlanta Police Department entered a DOJ consent decree. 5 years of federal oversight. Mandatory anti-discrimination training. Reformed complaint review processes. The systems that had allowed 11 complaints to go unaddressed would finally be dismantled. The chief of police resigned before he could be forced out. 3 supervisors who had dismissed prior complaints were demoted. Officer Washington, who had expressed doubt, who had suggested verification, who had been the one to remove the handcuffs, was promoted. She now leads the department's community relations training. Melissa Hayward, the jogger whose complaint had started it all, faced no criminal charges. The civil lawsuit that Brooks filed against her settled for an undisclosed amount. She sold her home in the neighborhood adjacent to Piedmont Park and moved to the suburbs. Brooks returned to duty 6 weeks after the incident. The counterterrorism work continued. The threats kept coming. The mission remained. He still spends Saturdays at Piedmont Park. Same bench. Same book. Same hour while Maya and Sophia dance 2 blocks away. The officers who patrol the park now recognize him. They nod. They wave. They keep walking. On the first anniversary of the incident, the park placed a small plaque near the bench. Not at Brooks' request, at the request of community members who had watched the footage and wanted something permanent to mark what had happened. This bench is dedicated to the right of all Americans to exist peacefully in public spaces. In recognition of Special Agent Terrence Brooks, who was detained here for reading while black, and who responded with the dignity that defines true service. Brooks sat beside the plaque on its dedication day. Maya and Sophia ran across the grass nearby. His wife held his hand. 1 hour of peace. One bench by the lake. One book. In a nation that watched what happens when officers forget who belongs in public spaces. Everyone belongs. That was always the point.
I already showed you my ID.
You fit the description of a shoplifter. Turn around, sir.
I paid for my groceries. You're making a mistake, officer.
I said turn around. Don't make this harder than it needs to be.
I'm a Navy SEAL. You don't want to do this.
I don't care if you're a damn astronaut. You're being detained.
15 minutes. That's how long it took for the Department of Defense to respond when Chief Petty Officer Marcus Reynolds didn't check in for a scheduled secure briefing. He was supposed to be at Naval Special Warfare Command by noon, a planning session for an operation that would remain classified for decades. Instead, he was face down on the floor of a Whole Foods in Virginia Beach, an officer's knee on his back, being detained for fitting the description of a shoplifter. The description was simple: black male. The groceries in his reusable bags were paid for. His receipt was in his pocket. His military ID was in his wallet. His sealed trident tattoo was visible on his forearm. None of it mattered to Officer Derek Sloan, but it mattered to the two men in suits who walked through the door 15 minutes later. DoD credentials, Pentagon authority, and the particular urgency that accompanies a missing special operator with active security clearance. The bodycam captured Sloan's face when he realized what he had done. The investigation captured everything else. The Whole Foods on Independence Boulevard served the military families of Virginia Beach, a community built around Naval Station Norfolk and the special warfare commands that operated from its facilities. Shopping carts filled with organic produce and protein moved past service members in civilian clothes, their fitness levels, and bearing the only indicators of their profession. Chief Petty Officer Marcus Reynolds had 45 minutes before his briefing. Enough time to grab groceries for the week, drop them at his apartment, and make the drive to the compound. His girlfriend was flying in that evening. The refrigerator was empty. The errand was routine. 14 years Navy SEAL. 4 combat deployments. 2 to Afghanistan. 1 to Syria. 1 to a location that remained redacted in every document. Silver Star for actions during a firefight that had never appeared in any news report. 3 Bronze Stars. Navy Commendation Medal with Valor. The kind of service record that filled classified personnel files but never made headlines. Bud/S Class 287. Hell Week survivor. The trident tattoo on his right forearm, eagle, anchor, trident, pistol, marked him as one of approximately 2,500 active duty SEALs in the entire United States Navy. This morning, he wore a fitted black Under Armour shirt, khaki cargo pants, and tactical boots. Standard off-duty attire for operators who never fully shed the readiness that training had made instinctive. His reusable grocery bag sat in the cart, meal prep supplies, protein sources, the fuel that maintained the physical capability his job required. He was in the checkout line when Amanda Whitfield, a store employee restocking shelves near the front entrance, watched him approach the register. She saw a muscular black man with grocery bags. She saw someone who didn't match her expectation of the store's typical clientele. She saw something that made her uncomfortable. She found her manager. There's a man at checkout who I think might be shoplifting. He has bags, but I didn't see him get a cart. The manager looked toward the registers. He saw Reynolds placing items on the conveyor belt, the same items visible in security footage being selected from shelves over the previous 20 minutes. He's checking out. He's paying. I just have a feeling. What feeling? I don't know. He just doesn't look right. The manager should have dismissed it. The cameras showed a customer shopping normally. The register would show a completed transaction. There was no basis for concern. Instead, he called the police non-emergency line. We might have a shoplifter at Whole Foods on Independence. Black male, athletic build, black shirt. Can you send someone to check it out? Officer Derek Sloan was 3 blocks away. 8 years on the Virginia Beach PD. A reputation that would become clear during the investigation that followed. He arrived at 11:38 a.m. Reynolds was walking toward the exit, receipt in hand, groceries bagged. Sloan intercepted him 10 feet from the door. He's checking out. He's paying. I just have a feeling. What feeling? I don't know. He just doesn't look right. The manager should have dismissed it. The cameras showed a customer shopping normally. The register would show a completed transaction. There was no basis for concern. Instead, he called the police non-emergency line. We might have a shoplifter at Whole Foods on Independence. Black male, athletic build, black shirt. Can you send someone to check it out? Officer Derek Sloan was 3 blocks away. 8 years on the Virginia Beach PD. A reputation that would become clear during the investigation that followed. He arrived at 11:38 a.m. Reynolds was walking toward the exit, receipt in hand, groceries bagged. Sloan intercepted him 10 feet from the door. Chapter 2. The description. 650 words. Sir, I need you to stop. Reynolds paused. His hands remained visible, holding the reusable bags, nothing concealed. The training was automatic. 14 years of operating in environments where sudden movements invited lethal responses. Is there a problem, officer? We received a report of shoplifting. I need to see your receipt. Reynolds set the bags down slowly. He reached into his back pocket, telegraphing the movement, keeping it visible, and produced the receipt. Here, everything's accounted for. Sloan took the receipt. His eyes moved across it briefly, then back to Reynolds. I'm going to need to see some ID. For what? You have the receipt. The items match. I need to verify your identity. Reynolds reached for his wallet. Same deliberate movement. Same visibility. He produced his military ID, the card that identified him as active duty Navy, his rank, his command. Sloan examined it. His expression didn't change. This doesn't prove you paid for these groceries. The receipt proves I paid for the groceries. The ID proves who I am. What else do you need? I need you to come with me to the security office. For what purpose? To verify your story. My story is that I bought groceries. The receipt is the verification. The store cameras will show me selecting every item and paying at the register. Sloan's partner had arrived. Officer Reina Martinez, 3 years on the force. Her bodycam activated as she approached, capturing the scene from a wider angle. What's going on? Possible shoplifter. He's being uncooperative. Uncooperative. Reynolds' voice remained level, but the temperature had dropped. I've shown you my receipt. I've shown you my ID. I've explained exactly what happened. What part of that is uncooperative? Your attitude. My attitude is patient. My attitude is professional. My attitude is what keeps situations like this from escalating unnecessarily. Sloan stepped closer. His hand moved to rest on his holster, not drawing, but present. You fit the description of a shoplifter. What description? Black male. Athletic build. This location. Reynolds looked at Sloan. At Martinez. At the customers who had stopped to watch near the entrance. That's not a description. That's a demographic. Half the men at Naval Station Norfolk matched that description. I don't make the rules. Actually, you do. You decide what constitutes reasonable suspicion. You decide whether to stop someone. You decide whether a receipt and a military ID are sufficient verification. And I've decided they're not. Then we have a problem. Because I have a briefing at noon that I cannot miss. Classified. Time sensitive. And you're detaining me for buying groceries. I don't care about your briefing. You should. The people waiting for me at that briefing care about national security. They care about operations that keep this country safe. And right now, you're preventing me from attending because I fit the description of being black in a grocery store. Sloan's face reddened. Martinez's bodycam captured it. The flush of someone whose authority was being challenged by facts. I already showed you my ID. What exactly is the problem here? The problem is you fit the description of a shoplifter. Turn around. I paid for my groceries. You're making a mistake, officer. I said turn around. Now, don't make this harder than it needs to be. Reynolds looked directly into Sloan's bodycam. I'm a Navy SEAL. You don't want to do this. Sloan's hand closed around his arm. I don't care if you're a damn astronaut. You're being detained. Reynolds didn't resist the grip. 14 years of training had taught him when to fight and when to wait. This wasn't a firefight. This was a grocery store with multiple cameras, 2 body cams, and witnesses throughout the checkout area. Composure was the weapon here. Documentation was the ammunition. For the record, I am Chief Petty Officer Marcus Reynolds, United States Navy. I am assigned to Naval Special Warfare Command. I have shown my military identification and my purchase receipt. I am being detained without probable cause. Shut up. I will not shut up. I'm documenting this encounter for the recording devices present. He raised his right arm slightly, not to strike, but to display. The sealed trident tattoo was clearly visible on his forearm. Eagle, anchor, trident, pistol. The emblem that fewer than 1% of those who attempt BUD/S training ever earn. You see this tattoo? This is a Navy SEAL trident. It's not something you can buy. It's not something you can fake. It represents the most demanding military training in the world. I've earned this through 14 years of service. Sloan glanced at the tattoo. His expression didn't change. Anyone can get a tattoo. Check my ID again. Naval Special Warfare Command. That's not a tattoo. That's official military documentation. I've seen fake military IDs before. You're looking at a real one. That's what everyone says. Martinez had positioned herself to the side, her body cam capturing both men in frame. Her expression carried something Sloan's didn't, uncertainty. The recognition that something was wrong with this encounter. Derek, maybe we should call the store manager. Verify with the cameras. I don't need cameras. I have a description and a suspect. The description was black male. That's not a description. That's... Stay out of this, Martinez. Reynolds looked at her body cam, at the doubt visible in her posture. Officer Martinez, for the record, your partner is detaining me based solely on my race. The description he cited contains no identifying information beyond skin color. I have provided documentation of my identity and my purchase. I am requesting that you contact my commanding officer at Naval Special Warfare Command to verify my status. Don't talk to her, Sloan interrupted. You talk to me. I'll talk to whoever is willing to listen to facts. You've demonstrated that's not you. Sloan's grip tightened on Reynolds' arm. You think you're smart? You think that military ID makes you special? I think that military ID represents 14 years of service to this country. I think it should warrant basic professional verification before you escalate a grocery store encounter into a federal incident. Federal incident? I'm active duty military with security clearance. Detaining me without cause creates jurisdictional complications you haven't considered. The only complication here is your mouth. My mouth is documenting your violations for the cameras that are going to be subpoenaed when this becomes a civil rights case. The customers near the entrance had multiplied. Phones were appearing. The particular tension of public confrontation drawing attention from every angle. Last chance, Sloan said. Turn around and put your hands behind your back. On what charge? Resisting. I haven't resisted anything. I'm standing still while you grip my arm. You're refusing to comply. I'm refusing to be handcuffed without legal cause. That's my constitutional right. Turn around. Reynolds looked at the cameras. At Martinez. At the crowd with their phones. I want it on record that I am not resisting. I am complying under duress with what I believe to be an unlawful detention. He turned slowly. Sloan grabbed his wrists and pushed. The takedown was aggressive and unnecessary. Reynolds had turned voluntarily. His hands were moving toward his back without resistance. Every camera in the store, body cams, security cameras, phones, captured a man complying with instructions. Sloan drove him forward anyway. Reynolds hit the floor face first. The impact was controlled. He turned his head at the last moment, absorbed the fall with his shoulder, protected his skull the way combatives' training had made instinctive. He had been thrown by men trying to kill him. This was violent, but survivable. His groceries scattered. The reusable bags split open. Protein bars and vegetables rolling across the polished floor of a Whole Foods entrance. Stay down. I am down. Sloan's knee pressed into his back, between the shoulder blades, pinning him to the tile. The position was uncomfortable, but not injurious. Reynolds had endured worse in training evolutions designed to simulate capture. Hands behind your back. They're behind my back. The handcuffs clicked around his wrists. Cold metal. The same sensation he had felt in SEER school, learning to resist interrogation, learning that captivity was survivable if you maintained composure. Composure. That was the weapon. The body cams were recording. The store cameras were recording. The phones held by witnesses were recording. Every second of this encounter was being documented from multiple angles. He would not give Sloan the reaction he was looking for. You have the right to remain silent. I'm not being charged with a crime. You have no probable cause. I have a report of shoplifting. You have a report of a black man in a grocery store. That's not shoplifting. That's shopping. Anything you say can and will. I invoke my right to remain silent except to document this encounter. I am Chief Petty Officer Marcus Reynolds. I am being detained without probable cause after providing proof of purchase and military identification. A crowd had formed. 20 people. 30. The particular horror of watching someone being arrested in a public space, the uncertainty about whether to intervene, the phones recording from every angle. An older white man in a Naval Academy sweatshirt pushed forward. What the hell is going on here? That man showed you his ID. Sir, step back. I saw the whole thing. He paid for those groceries. He showed you the receipt. I won't tell you again. He's got a trident tattoo, for God's sake. You're arresting a Navy SEAL. Martinez stepped between the man and her partner. Sir, please. Let us handle this. Handle what? A wrongful arrest? This is going to be on every news channel by tonight. Reynolds lay on the floor, cheek against cold tile, watching the scene from ground level. The witnesses. The phones. The man in the Navy sweatshirt who had recognized what Sloan refused to see. Officer Martinez. His voice was calm, measured. I have a classified briefing at Naval Special Warfare Command at noon. I was expected to check in 15 minutes ago. By now, my absence has been flagged. People will be looking for me. Martinez looked at her watch. At Reynolds. At her partner. Derek, maybe we should. We're not doing anything until he's processed. Processed for what? Shoplifting. He has a receipt. Receipts can be faked. The automatic doors opened. The Virginia Beach morning light spilled across the entrance. Two men walked through. They wore suits. Dark. Expensive. The particular cut that indicated government service at a level above local law enforcement. Their badges were already in their hands. Credentials that made Martinez take a step backward and Sloan's knee lift slightly from Reynolds' back. Department of Defense. Officer, step away from that man. Sloan looked up. At the credentials. At the faces of men who had driven very fast to reach this location. Who the hell are you? We're the people who are going to explain to you exactly who you just put on the ground. The two men approached with the deliberate calm of professionals who had handled situations far more volatile than a grocery store confrontation. Their credentials remained visible. Department of Defense, Office of the Inspector General. I'm Agent Harrison. This is Agent Delgado. We're here for Chief Petty Officer Reynolds. Sloan remained crouched over Reynolds, though his knee had lifted from the operator's back. His face carried the confusion of someone whose certainty was encountering information it couldn't process. How do you know his name? Because we've been tracking his location for the past 20 minutes. He missed a scheduled check-in. When operators with his clearance level go dark, we investigate. Harrison looked down at Reynolds, still handcuffed, still on the floor, surrounded by scattered groceries. Chief, are you injured? Negative. Just detained. On what charge? Shoplifting. Allegedly. Harrison turned to Sloan. His expression carried nothing that could be called friendly. Shoplifting. You're detaining a Navy SEAL for shoplifting. We received a report. Did you verify the report? I was in the process. Did you check whether he paid for his groceries? Silence. Did you look at his receipt? He showed me a receipt, but did you verify his military ID? Anyone can get. Did you contact Naval Special Warfare Command to confirm his identity? Sloan had no answer. Delgado had already moved to Reynolds' side. He knelt, examined the handcuffs, then looked at Martinez. Officer keys. Ah, yes. Here. She handed them over. Delgado unlocked the cuffs with practiced efficiency. Chief, can you stand? Reynolds rose slowly. He rolled his shoulders, the controlled movement of someone assessing physical status. No injury. No damage beyond the indignity. I'm operational. Your briefing has been postponed. Commander Reyes sends his regards and wants you to know the situation is being handled. Handled how? Jurisdictionally. Harrison turned back to Sloan. Officer, this man is active duty military assigned to a special warfare command. His security clearance is above anything you've ever encountered. When he goes missing, people at the Pentagon notice. When he goes missing in a grocery store parking lot, those people ask questions. I didn't know. You didn't ask. He offered identification. You refused to verify. He offered his receipt. You dismissed it. He identified himself as a Navy SEAL. You said, Harrison paused, consulting a phone that had clearly been receiving updates. I don't care if you're a damn astronaut. The Bodycam footage had already been flagged. Someone at DoD was monitoring in real time. This is now a federal matter. Your Bodycam footage is being preserved. The store's security footage is being subpoenaed. Every phone recording in this crowd is potential evidence. Sloan's face had gone pale. The color change was visible on Martinez's Bodycam, still recording, still capturing every moment of the encounter's reversal. I was just responding to a call. You were responding to a description that consisted of black male. That's not a description. That's racial profiling. And you applied it to one of the most decorated special operators on the East Coast. Reynolds had gathered his scattered groceries. The protein bars, the vegetables, the mundane supplies that had somehow become evidence in a federal civil rights investigation. Agent Harrison, I need to make a phone call. To Commander Reyes? To my attorney. Harrison nodded. Understood. We'll secure the scene. He turned to Sloan one final time. Officer, you're going to want to contact your union representative and your department's legal counsel, and possibly a very good defense attorney. For what? For what comes next? The Virginia Beach Police Department received notification within the hour. Not from the officers on scene, from the Pentagon. Captain William Forsyth was in his office when the call came through. The caller identified himself as representing the Department of Defense Office of Inspector General. The subject was an incident at Whole Foods involving one of their officers and an active-duty special warfare operator. What kind of incident? The kind that generates federal civil rights investigations. Forsyth pulled up the CAD system. Call for service. Possible shoplifter. Officers dispatched. No arrest logged. No transport. Just a status change. Cleared by DOD. Cleared by DOD? Chief Petty Officer Reynolds is assigned to Naval Special Warfare Command. He has security clearance at a level I can't discuss on this line. When he missed a scheduled briefing, his location was flagged. We dispatched agents. They found him face down on a grocery store floor in handcuffs. For shoplifting? For being black in a Whole Foods. The receipt was in his pocket. His military ID was in his wallet. Your officer dismissed both and proceeded to detain him. Forsyth closed his eyes. 8 years of building community relations. Implicit bias training. De-escalation protocols. All of it undone by one officer's assumptions. I need to see the Bodycam footage. You'll have it within the hour. So will the FBI. So will the U.S. Attorney's Office. FBI. Federal civil rights violations. Assault on military personnel. When you detain a special operator without cause and put him on the ground, you've created federal jurisdiction. Forsyth had already pulled Sloan's personnel file on his second monitor. The complaint's visible. The pattern emerging. I'll handle it internally. You'll handle it however the federal investigation allows. Officer Sloan is to be relieved of duty pending the outcome. His badge and weapon collected. He is not to discuss this incident with anyone except legal counsel. Understood. Captain, I want to be clear about something. Chief Petty Officer Reynolds has spent 14 years conducting operations that protect this country. He has a Silver Star, 3 Bronze Stars, and a security clearance that puts him in rooms with people whose names you'll never know. Your officer put him face down on a floor because someone called in black male as a description. I understand the severity. I don't think you do. Not yet. But you will. The call ended. Forsyth stared at his screen. At Sloan's file. At the 8 prior complaints that had been dismissed, minimized, explained away. This one wouldn't be explained away. The Bodycam footage arrived 47 minutes later. Forsyth watched it twice. The first time with growing disbelief. The second time with the cold assessment of someone calculating liability. I don't care if you're a damn astronaut. That line would end Sloan's career. That line would end up in federal court filings. That line would become the defining quote of a trial that would draw national attention. He picked up his phone. This is Captain Forsyth. I need to speak with Chief Patterson immediately. He's in a meeting. Get him out of it. We have a situation. 30 minutes later, Officer Derek Sloan was relieved of duty. His badge surrendered. His weapon collected. His patrol car keys returned to the motor pool. He was escorted from the building by internal affairs officers who had already received the federal preservation order for all electronic communications, personnel records, and body-worn camera footage related to his employment. This is ridiculous, Sloan said as he walked to his personal vehicle. It was a shoplifting call. It was a Navy SEAL, the IA investigator responded. And the Pentagon wants to know why he was on your floor. Sloan had no answer. He wouldn't find one. The investigation expanded within days. FBI Civil Rights Division. DOD Inspector General. Virginia Beach Internal Affairs. 3 parallel inquiries examining the same incident from different angles. The Bodycam footage was the foundation, but the investigation would reveal the architecture beneath it. Officer Derek Sloan had accumulated 19 complaints in 8 years. Excessive force. Discriminatory conduct. Failure to follow procedure. 14 had been dismissed. 5 had resulted in written reprimands, paper that went into his file and changed nothing about his behavior. The pattern was visible in the data. His stop records showed consistent targeting of black individuals in retail environments. Shopping centers, grocery stores, electronics retailers. Anywhere that a black person with nice things might attract the kind of attention that Sloan was happy to provide. 12 prior shoplifting detentions. 0 convictions. 0 charges filed. 12 black men and women stopped, questioned, sometimes detained. All released when verification proved what they had told him from the start. His social media accounts filled in the picture. Posts shared without comment from accounts that trafficked in racial grievance. Comments on news articles celebrating aggressive policing. Membership in online groups where officers discussed which stores had the best calls, meaning locations where certain demographics could be stopped with minimal questions. Text messages to fellow officers revealed more. Jokes about retail reconnaissance. Comments about keeping the nice stores safe. A message sent 2 days before the Reynolds incident. Got another one at Target yesterday. These people think they can shop anywhere now. The store employee who had made the initial report was interviewed separately. Amanda Whitfield, 23, restocking shelves near the entrance. Why did you report Mr. Reynolds? He had bags. I didn't see him get a cart. Did you see him take anything without paying? No. Did you see any suspicious behavior? No. What made you think he was shoplifting? Silence. Ms. Whitfield, I just had a feeling. A feeling about what? He didn't look like our typical customer. What does your typical customer look like? She had no answer that wouldn't confirm what the investigation already knew. The store manager who had called police was terminated by Whole Foods corporate within the week. His decision to contact law enforcement, based on an employee's feeling with no supporting evidence, violated company policy and had exposed the chain to civil liability. The federal grand jury convened 6 weeks after the incident. The charges presented: deprivation of rights under color of law, assault, false imprisonment, civil rights violations. The evidence was comprehensive. The bodycam footage, the store security cameras, the phone recordings from witnesses, the DOD tracking records proving Reynolds' location and the timeline of federal response. Reynolds provided testimony over 2 days. He described the stop, the dismissal of his credentials, the astronaut comment, the takedown, the minutes on the floor while an officer's knee pressed into his back. I've operated in hostile territory for 14 years. I've been in firefights, ambushes, situations where the enemy was trying to kill me. I've never felt as disrespected as I did on that grocery store floor. The grand jury returned indictments within hours. The trial was scheduled for federal court. The federal courtroom in Norfolk drew national attention. The case had become a symbol, a Navy SEAL with a silver star, detained and thrown to the ground for buying groceries because he fit the description of being black. Reynolds testified in his dress, white uniform. 14 years of service displayed across his chest: silver star, bronze stars with valor, Navy Commendation Medal, combat deployment ribbons. The trident pin above them all. On December 3rd, I stopped at Whole Foods to buy groceries before a briefing at Naval Special Warfare Command. The briefing was classified. The timeline was important. I had 45 minutes. He described the stop, the demand for ID, the dismissal of his receipt, the moment Sloan called his credentials into question. I showed him my military ID. He said anyone could get a fake one. I showed him my receipt. He said receipts could be forged. I showed him my trident tattoo. He said anyone could get a tattoo. The bodycam footage was played for the jury. They watched Sloan approach. They watched him dismiss every piece of evidence Reynolds offered. They watched the astronaut comment. I don't care if you're a damn astronaut. You're being detained. They watched the takedown. A compliant man driven to the floor. A trained operator who didn't resist because he knew the cameras were his allies. Chief Reynolds, how did it feel to be on that floor? I've been on floors before. I've been captured in training exercises. I've been in situations where enemy combatants had the advantage. This was different. Different how? Because this was my country. This was my grocery store. This was an American police officer treating me like an enemy combatant because of my skin color. The DOD agents testified about the tracking system, the missed briefing, the response timeline. 15 minutes from flagged absence to on-scene arrival. When operators with Chief Reynolds' clearance go dark, we investigate immediately. The work he does, The work I can't discuss in this courtroom is too important to risk. Sloane's attorney attempted the standard defense. Good faith response to a legitimate call. No way to know. Following procedure. The prosecutor's rebuttal was surgical. Following procedure? The procedure for a shoplifting report is to verify the complaint. Officer Sloane never spoke to store management, never reviewed security footage, never checked whether Mr. Reynolds had paid. He saw a black man and decided that was enough. She turned to the jury. I don't care if you're a damn astronaut. That's what Officer Sloane said to a Silver Star recipient, a man who has spent 14 years protecting this country in ways we can't discuss. That's not procedure. That's prejudice. The jury deliberated for 5 hours. Guilty on all counts. Sloane stood motionless as the verdicts were read. His attorney placed a hand on his shoulder. His family in the gallery wept. The judge scheduled sentencing for 6 weeks later. The defendant has demonstrated a pattern of conduct that betrays every principle of law enforcement. He used his badge to target citizens based on race. He did so to a decorated military hero in a grocery store over bags of groceries that were paid for. The consequences will reflect the severity of his choices. The courtroom was silent as the judge reviewed the pre-sentencing materials. 8 years of complaints. 19 documented incidents. A pattern visible to anyone who looked. Officer Sloane, you were entrusted with a badge to protect all citizens equally. Instead, you used that badge to harass, demean, and assault a man who has given 14 years of his life to protecting this nation. She paused. When Chief Reynolds showed you his military identification, you dismissed it. When he showed you his receipt, you ignored it. When he identified himself as a Navy SEAL, you said you didn't care if he was an astronaut. That contempt for his service, for his dignity, for the evidence directly in front of you, represents everything that is wrong with policing in America. The sentence, 18 years federal prison. Enhanced for targeting a military service member. Enhanced for the documented pattern of civil rights violations. Enhanced for the assault that occurred after Reynolds had clearly complied with instructions. Sloane was led from the courtroom in handcuffs, the same restraints he had applied to Reynolds in a grocery store 4 months earlier. The civil settlement followed within 3 months. Virginia Beach agreed to pay $12.8 million rather than face a trial the city knew it would lose. Reynolds distributed the money with purpose. $4 million to the Naval Special Warfare Foundation, supporting the families of SEALs killed or wounded in service. $3 million to establish scholarships for minority students pursuing military careers, ensuring that the next generation of operators wouldn't face the assumptions he had faced. $2 million to civil rights organizations focused on police accountability, funding the systemic change that individual cases couldn't achieve. The remaining funds secured his family's future, his parents' retirement, his siblings' children's education, the stability that service should have always guaranteed. The Virginia Beach Police Department entered a DOJ consent decree. 5 years of federal oversight. Mandatory implicit bias training. Reformed complaint review processes. The systems that had allowed 19 complaints to go unaddressed would finally be dismantled. Chief Patterson resigned before he could be forced out. 3 supervisors who had dismissed prior complaints were demoted. Officer Martinez, who had questioned her partner, who had shown doubt, who had ultimately handed over the handcuff keys, was promoted to lead the department's new community relations unit. She had done what Sloane refused to do. She had listened. The store manager who had called police was never rehired in retail management. Amanda Whitfield, the employee whose feeling had started it all, left the workforce entirely. The attention too intense, the accountability too unfamiliar. Reynolds returned to duty 3 weeks after the incident. The classified briefing he had missed was rescheduled. The operation it supported was executed successfully. The details remained redacted. He was promoted to Senior Chief Petty Officer 6 months later. He continues to serve at Naval Special Warfare Command. His work remains classified. His service continues. He still shops at the Whole Foods on Independence Boulevard. Same store. Same checkout lines. Same groceries. The manager who called police is gone. The employee who reported him is gone. The officer who detained him is serving 18 years in federal prison. The cameras remain. The body cams. The security footage. The phones that appear whenever something seems wrong. Reynolds knows they're there. He counted on them that morning. Knew that composure was the weapon, That documentation was the ammunition, that the system would work if he gave it evidence it couldn't ignore. He was right. 18 years. $12.8 million. One grocery store receipt that proved what should never have been questioned. Some descriptions fit perfectly. Derek Sloan fit the description of an officer who saw race before evidence, assumption before fact, prejudice before duty. That description will follow him for the rest of his life. The trident on Reynolds' forearm will last just as long. Only one of them earned what they carry.